I have been purchasing physical copies of both movies and games for the longest time. There's something about building a personal collection of both that makes my adoration for them feel that much more special, and in many cases, I can appreciate the amount of work that can go into designing something as simple as a box art to any contents held within the case, or even on the disc in films cases. I tell you, I miss the days when DVD menus were a lot more stylized, but at the same time, I love digital distribution too. I really find them to be helpful in searching for new media that I'm not sure I would have found otherwise, let alone like it. But I believe we owe it a lot of thanks for really letting smaller studios get their works and their voices out there. To put it this way, I very highly doubt that indie titles would have as strong of a standing as they do now if we didn't have digital markets, especially Steam. I believe both deserve to have a place within modern-day society, and putting both against each other really isn't worth it in my opinion. Trying to argue which one is better is not the point of this video, because plenty of cases can be made for both, and that debate is a distraction from the actual problem I want to talk about. Now to start with this, I totally understand why so many people have been heavily favoring digital storefronts and streaming services as of recent years, and I too see the value in them. I use streaming services quite a bit in order to catch up on a lot of awesome shows and movies, and I do buy plenty of games digitally, especially if it's an indie game, or if it happens to be much cheaper at the moment. They're all super helpful. Also with these, I can easily try out demos of games to see if I think they'll be worth the money, and gauge my interest in shows and films, even experiencing ones I end up not liking without paying for a physical copy. And on top of that, one of the biggest things that digital distribution has is that it's generally easier to do than it is physically. If any movie or game you're looking forward to is uploaded onto a service that you can easily access from your console or TV, you don't need to jump through as many hoops to access it, and companies don't need to jump through as many hoops to get it to you. You don't need to bother going to a store or getting someone to deliver it to you in the mail, and the companies can save themselves from fees needed to get it on the shelves, and everyone is spared from potential trouble that can arise within the stores. I respect all of that. I think that makes for a good accomplice to physical media, but not a good replacement. My reasoning for this is, despite the convenience of accessing an online library or buying what you want and downloading it onto a hard drive, because everything is just online files that can be transferred over the internet, companies have more control over what you can and cannot buy or see on them. In the case of streaming services, you have access to the library of shows and movies, but you don't actually own any of what's on there. It may be easy to access certain libraries digitally, but it's just as easy for you to lose it, either by your account getting compromised, or by companies being able to choose how they want a lot of this to be distributed. The latter means that these services can be the only way you can experience them. This may not sound like much if you are the type of person who just likes to view what's available and relevant, but as someone who enjoys, at times even loves, some of the movies and shows that are on there, I think any sort of delisting of them, from a licensing deal expiring, the service itself shutting down, or because someone wants more money in their pocket, is going to bite, not just because I have less control over when I can view my favorite things, but also because the hard work of talented people just doesn't become publicly available because an executive said so. As for digital purchases, you're really just buying a license to put the movie or game on your hard drive, which can be revoked. A prime example of this has to be part of the failure of Concord. Because so few people actually bought this game, not only were the servers taken offline, but everyone who bought it, especially digitally, had that data taken from their system's hard drives. Granted, refunds were issued because now physical copies of it are glorified drink coasters, but if it can happen to Concord, why can't it happen to any other game? There's also the accidental selling of the game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. Not the movie, the game from the late 2000s. People bought this game when it was available briefly, but because Activision doesn't own the rights to make TMNT games, thus making selling it illegal since the money went to them, taken off Steam, removed from hard drives, refunds issued. This takeback is understandable despite how inaccessible the game in question is, but if you ask me, both of these set a dangerous precedent for digital purchases if companies can just take away a file in a flash. There's also having the ability to buy some products digitally being revoked, either through the ones in question being delisted without the hard drive ripping, like Namco removing the ability to buy many Tales games on the PS3 store to push units for their supposed remasters, or an entire marketplace being shut down, like the Wii U and 3DS eShop, or the 360 marketplace, or at least taking away the ability to directly deposit money, like the PS3 store. So yes, while digital purchasing might be more convenient and easier to some, it's also easier for companies to manipulate to their liking to try and get you to buy or financially support what they want you to, rather than what you want to, whereas with physical media, the most that can be done is just inhibit the stock on the shelves. That's a giant advantage purchasing a physical copy has. Once you get that copy, it's yours for good. You're free to do what you want with it, without needing to worry about someone barging in to suddenly revoke it from you.
If they could, I wouldn't have this.
Not to mention, ignoring how fun it can be to browse a store for movies and games you really want, and how satisfying it is to build your own personal selection, when paired with digital services, physical media can be an amazing way to continually support the people who worked on it. You not only get what the product was promising, but a really neatly designed package a lot of the time, and in some movies' case, a lot of really cool extras on the disc that they felt like including just for the sake of it. Yeah, sometimes streaming services can include a lot of this stuff too, but having it on one content-packed disc just feels so much better in my opinion. It's also a way of saying to them, hey, I tried this out once, and I would like to pay this amount of money for a disc because you deserve it. And that, to me, says a lot more than just getting a license to download it. Also in the case of games, because they've been getting really big as of late that they usually require updates on day one, physical copies can help try and minimize the amount of space taken up in order for you to keep a tidy library. Granted, Nintendo does that more than Sony and Microsoft, but the point still stands. However, I understand that in order to sell a form of media physically, it requires a lot more money than just putting the files up online, what with stuff like packaging and distributing to other stores and all that, but it all culminates into what I think the real problem both these forms of distribution are really facing. Companies trying to turn consumers into either all digital buyers in the case of people who just want a movie or a game, or whales in the case of people who want to buy physical media for everything, all of whom will just buy any of these products without question. What I'm about to go into is not to say that we shouldn't be happy with what we do get on digital services, or that we shouldn't splurge on physical media or rare collector's editions. I find moments that I think are good for paying large amounts of money on hobbies all the time, and I always find playing to enjoy on the likes of streaming services. What I am saying is that companies are trying to get you to buy exactly what they want you to through the method they want you to, even if they seem like they're respecting your wishes. In terms of self-created streaming services like Disney Plus or Paramount Plus in the case of films and shows, or the Switch Online service or Ubisoft Plus in the case of games, because these are self-created, that means that only the distributing companies themselves see all the benefits of any money people are willing to pay for them, whereas with physical copies, unless the distributing company happens to own the store in question, a cut of that profit is shared with the retail store, like say if you bought a Blu-ray distributed by Disney from something like Target or Best Buy. Not to mention, they don't receive any money from used copies, which people can work around to their advantage. So, knowing this, digital services have become a way to increase profits for casual buyers, hence why they've been trying to make only two groups for that purpose. Now, I am no expert in economics, so what I'm explaining is mostly things that can be learned or observed at an elementary level of that topic. This is also why, in the case of physical media, not only do several companies not want to go through the trouble of building their own physical store and deal with all the fees that come with it, but they become reliant on compulsion to get people to buy the latest games or even their highly specialized collector's editions. It's a case of trying to manipulate your way of thinking and get you to go for the option the company responsible for creating the product can get the most money off of. Case in point, limited run games. Despite the amount of cool things that they have, their marketplace is essentially built with this practice in mind, with how often the games that they sell start their digital runs way earlier, how their products take months to actually get delivered more often than not, and how often they apparently limit their stock of their products for whatever purpose they want. Even if you want to buy just a lone physical game, either in a store or online, given how underwhelming they can be at times, and how they really try to get you to go out of your way, or have some kind of asterisk involved with how they provide said physical copy to you in others, it feels like these downsides are done on purpose. Even most of the people who buy physical media nowadays are hardcore collectors, while most of the masses go digital nowadays, consumers should be allowed more options than this. Those who mean these forms of media have more ease of accessibility, which means more potential customers can be drawn in. It may seem like there are plenty of options, but with a lot of budgeted decisions, they're trying to take some of them away, all the while making some potential media inaccessible when you want to see or play them. Like, I get there's a lot more than goes into making movies, shows, or games available, like licensing, and in video games case, making sure the game is optimized for the console in question. I get that money keeps stores selling physical media afloat, but when I see a company delist a movie or a game regardless if it's a rights issue or they're just trying to save money, I cannot help but believe their selection of available products and the methods of accessibility are borderline artificial for the sake of not letting the consumer think, and how much more of a reason they're giving people to pirate something, and it needs to stop. There's nothing wrong with committing to either or. You're all free to do what you want with your money, and part of what I explained about company motivation is just how the marketplace works. Trying to convince you into buying things is their job, and it always will be. That's not my problem by default. My problem comes from these practices trying to deprive us of that choice and do things just because someone else got into our heads, almost like they're trying to make that choice for us. I would be able to suspend my disbelief if it went just as far as promoting digital editions above all else. But when I see companies try to skew viewpoints by having some physical cases have so little inside them, having physical discs just to unlock digital versions, package download codes physically, rely on artificial scarcity, sell the disk drive as a completely separate add-on, or intentionally cause damage to physical cases and discs on one end, and just remove things from a digital store or streaming service just like that on the other, not to mention some brands doing a poor job providing services they offer on their websites, it reaffirms my stance against an all-digital future, and my stance for a future where physical and digital media can exist hand in hand. So what I'm saying is, choose how you want to watch shows and movies, or play games you want to, decide how much you are willing to pay for that moment, and give feedback based on what you like and don't like for future reference. As a customer, you should be the one in control of what you buy. What you choose to get, the way you get it, and the amount of money you spend, all that should be up to you, not them. You have the right to speak up about what business decisions you are satisfied and unsatisfied with, because it helps me aware of some things happening behind the scenes. The feedback you could give shows you are actually thinking and genuinely care about accessibility to all audiences, and are not just being complacent. Because if it's one thing companies want you to be, especially in regards to certain business decisions to save money, it is complacent. Though, because some like to lump people who have genuine criticism with those who resort to harassment of others online to prove their superiority complex, please be civil about what you say. Will it dissuade the seller from trying anything sketchy or anti-consumer in the future? No. Will it get rid of FOMO entirely? Absolutely not. We can't get rid of market competition or recency hype. Will it get rid of decisions made on the cheap? No. They'll always try to make those kinds of decisions, but it will let them know about what you don't like overall and what circumstances you'll gladly show them the money towards. And again, giving them the money isn't the issue. Both are luxury services at the end of the day. It's the way they're still trying to convince everyone to commit to one or the other to maximize profits that's really driving absolute viewpoints home. Not to mention the ways they can make digital inconvenient. You can prefer whatever method of buying and experiencing media you want, and you could just look at the upsides one has over the other and stop there. All that's fine, but I don't believe we should have physical and digital storefronts competing with one another. We should work together to give both kinds of customers a reason to be happy with what they want, and with another who made a different choice. I get there will be some stipulations with how the market works that we'll have to put up with regardless. Like, I'm not going to ask for collector's editions to be like less than $50, but we don't just have to sit here with how things are. At the end of the day, you are the judge of what you prefer, and if you do not approve of a business decision, you have every reason to speak up about it. Personally, I am not content with surrendering my right to choose what physical and digital media I desire. I want to own what I buy, and the lengths that companies have gone to either try and change that, or take more money than necessary, is just excessive. I am not falling for either plan, and I recommend you remain aware of what companies can do, regardless of choice. I'm Lightning Ripper, and thank you for watching.